What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the GOAT Debate Podcast. We're live, of course, on Facebook. If you're listening to this later on your podcasting platforms, we're not live, but we're certainly glad that you guys are joining us for this episode. Darius, what episode is this? Is this?
I think we're at 18 now.
18, yeah. Last week was
Lucky
17.
number 18.
Yeah, there we go. Episode 18 of the GOAT Debate Podcast. Meech, Darius, and a guy who really isn't a guest. I mean, this guy is, he's basically fam. If you guys know anything about Hit the Ropes, which is our previous podcast before we started dabbling with the GOAT Debate, this was the crew. We talked all things professional wrestling, MMA. We tried boxing for a little bit. That didn't go very, very well. But we're all back together here for this episode. We got our man Shane Howard. He used to be the Caribbean Playboy. Now he's DJ Pop Tart 876 on TikTok. Shane, what's up, man? Thanks for joining us tonight.
When boys send out the call, I got to pick it up. I got to come through, man.
Yeah, you got that HTR bat symbol we sent out. I guess there's, I asked how Shane was doing. I guess I should ask, how are you doing too? I mean, it is your show too. I mean, my bad. How are you, sir? How are you?
Listen, I'm excited about this topic tonight. I will not delay it any further with how I'm doing, but I will address the fact that James has been avoiding me since he made that John Stockton comment way back when, a couple episodes ago. I see him in the chat now. He better not have anything smart to say. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
but
James.
Start the show.
James is always causing a ruckus in the chat room. I don't know who this guy's related to or who his family is, but he's a troublemaker for sure. But yes, tonight, if you see the HTR crew together for an episode of the GOAT Debate, it might mean that we're talking some professional wrestling, although we do have other interests. I mean, me and Shane could maybe do a stock show, and who knows? But we have other interests. But usually when we're all together, we are talking professional wrestling. And tonight, as Darius said, he's very excited about tonight's topic because it's probably near and dear to his heart from a regional perspective. I grew up in the Midwest. I think, Shane, you're an East Coaster originally. And I think we kind of grew up more on WWE. I don't want to speak for you, but WWE or WWF as it was known back then. But Darius is a Southerner. And in the South, WCW kind of ruled the wrestling landscape. And WCW, though, they had their run. They were very popular. They're no longer in business. They were ultimately bought out by Vince McMahon and the WWE. They aren't talked about. I think since they've been scooped up by WWE, WWE owns all their rights, and you can watch a lot of that stuff on their network. But I don't know if they're talked about as much anymore, obviously. But tonight, we're going to resurrect for one night only the WCW. And we want to talk specifically about who is the greatest WCW superstar of all time. And there have been some great ones, guys. There have been some great WCW superstars over the course of their history. But what are your thoughts? Give me your preliminary thoughts on tonight's topic, where you think things are going, Shane, and then we'll start with some of our honorable mentions.
Even though I did grow up on the East Coast, and I've been like a big WWE, WWF fan for a long time, I was rolling with WCW for a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I was rolling with WCW. I love me some Canyon. Who's better than Canyon? But I'm excited for this because WCW, if it wasn't for them, the WWE that we know today wouldn't be as it is.
What do you mean by that? Give me elaborate on that a little bit.
You know, they were truly Vince's only, you know, on level competition. You know,
Yeah.
throughout the years, you know, you've had your TNA, you had ECW, you now have AEW, you know, you have these ROH, you have these companies who they'll come up, but they're always, you know, entrenched as a number 2 or a number 3. WCW for a while was a number 2, and then they said, "Heck with that, we coming for the throne." And you know, they pushed Vince, and I mean, they were number 1 for a while.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and Darius, you could make the argument. I mean, I guess we all could make the argument that for a time, WCW had the better product.
For 83 weeks, right? They won the ratings war for 83 straight weeks, which is now the name of Eric Bischoff's podcast that is done with Conrad Thompson. But yeah, they were good. If you go back and look at the actual content, you know, a lot of us complain about the content, you know, of wrestling in today's world. You know, if you go back and watch, not all of it was great, but there were so many surprises, which was something that made WCW so good during that era, that led to those 83 weeks on top. So, yeah, they definitely led, and they were the number 1 company in the world for a while.
Yeah, definitely. And so, of course, with them having their run and them being such a great company and being number 1 for a while, you know, knocking WWE, WWF off that pedestal for a while, they had to have some great superstars. Some of them were produced, not many, because that's one knock on WCW. They kind of bought names from WWE, but they did have a few superstars that they produced on their own that were great, and we're going to talk about some of them tonight, and maybe some of the ones that were originally WWE products. But let's go ahead first and get into our honorable mentions. Usually we call it the first 2 out because we have 2, but tonight we only have 1, which is unusual because sometimes we have 3, but tonight we have 1 honorable mention. And I'm a little surprised, guys, that this guy did not make the top 5. He was just outside of the top 5. Very, very close. He's not in the top 5 because of Darius. Which is
Seeing the top 5. I really regret that now.
Which is usually always the case. But before we name our top 5, Shane, technically you're a guest, so we did not factor in your top 5 in the composite rankings. So we will let you speak on who came in at number 5 on your personal list. And then we'll talk about the honorable mention. Go ahead and jump to your number 5 real quick.
All right. My number 5. I forgot. I didn't even. I have my notes here, but you would think that I had it numbered. No. All right. My number 5, and I did this, and I have to say there's a little caveat, because this is top WCW wrestlers and everything, and technically this person won championship in WCW. He's been in the ring and all that, but you wouldn't technically call him a wrestler. But I put him there. I put him as my number 5 because he was instrumental in WCW being what many would know WCW as. And my number 5 is none other than Sleazy E, Eric Bischoff.
That is interesting. First of all, I don't know if I ever heard anybody call him Sleazy E. I like that.
That was his nickname.
Was it? I see. Again, I'm a WWF guy, but I mean, I never heard that. in the times I watched WCW. But Eric Bischoff, technically not a wrestler. He tried to
not technically. He wasn't.
He wasn't a wrestler.
He won their hardcore championship. He is an amateur martial artist.
I was gonna say I do remember him like wrestling, wearing like kung fu outfits and stuff, but I think that was more in WWE. I don't know if he did that in WCW. Did he? But you said he won the hardcore title. I didn't even know WCW had a hardcore title.
I mean, he's fought Flair. He's I'm not disputing that. He's been in the ring.
Yeah, but technically, he's like Vince McMahon in that respect. Like, we wouldn't consider Vince a wrestler, but Vince probably has had way more matches than Eric Bischoff. I mean, there was a time where Vince was. You could almost consider him like an active wrestler because I mean that dude was like. Him and
he was the biggest heel, so it made sense. Right?
Yeah, he was a huge heel, and so Eric Bischoff, I think, tried to take on a little bit of that role in WCW, especially when he linked up with NWO, and he was kind of a mouthpiece. I remember him like talking a lot, and he played that role pretty good, and he was an even better heel, I think. When he came over to WWE and he was kind of, general manager of Raw and did some of those things. So Eric Bischoff was so instrumental to the success of WCW. I can get why Shane put him in the top 5. I wouldn't do it personally, but I understand it.
I think he is a great on-screen character.
Okay.
I think he was amazing there, and for that, I have no complaint with top 5 status. Obviously, we'll get into that a little bit later, but I have a lot of gripe just how Vince McMahon is deemed the genius. Eric Bischoff's lauded for his success, of transforming the company, which he did. But if you go back and look at all the moves that were made, he didn't initiate anything. Hulk Hogan was handed to him by Ric Flair.
Really?
Yeah. Let's see. Let me see. I'm having a brain fart right now.
They were, while he's thinking, Hogan was shooting a movie when they moved WCW. And that's how he was able to link up, like I think Flair and him hooked up with Hogan.
Gotcha.
Right, because the Vince lost confidence in him, and plus the steroid trial. So he got tired, went into TV. They were filming on the same lot. Hall and Nash, DDP brought them to Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff, I listen to his podcast, is where I get a lot of my information from, and he actively said, like, he pursued nobody. Like, at least Vince, he had annual meetings with like Ron Simmons before Ron Simmons jumped, with Sting. Like, they were always pursuing these guys, in secret hotels, trying to get them to jump, and they, wouldn't do it for whatever reasons. He did none of that. Bret Hart, he met with Bret Hart out of Bret Hart, asking for it, and he we know he screwed that up, but Bret Hart was big time, but Bret Hart was hot, right? And he went on and said he didn't need Bret Hart, and that he didn't care if he came or not. He never pursued Taker, he never pursued HBK, like nothing. So he did great as far as reducing the house shows to save money and getting them into MGM. So some financial moves, but creatively horrible. And that's why I was like, why are they bringing him back to WWE in this creative, position? But back to on screen, he was an awesome heel. He was horrible. He was hated. He was sleazy. The fact that, they're firing Pee Wee Anderson, right? The referee who had cancer. It was a very, very dramatic thing if you were watching WCW. I think he did the same thing with I don't know if Jim Duggan was just real cancer and he just came back or not, but anyways, he did a lot of sleazy stuff and he was an awesome on-screen character. So for that, definitely earns it. But as an executive,
as I say, I mean, you don't respect his business acumen at all. I mean, okay, he still had to like steer that ship. Now, granted, he ultimately, steered. It ultimately became the Titanic.
Listen, everybody walked.
That mug was the Love Boat. I mean, it was going well.
Creatively, not to his, not because of him. Like if I all of a sudden gave you a wrestling ring with Hulk Hogan, then I gave you Macho Man, then I gave you have Sting, you have Ric Flair. Like, I mean, you got to do something with it, for a matter of time. Even TNA got a pop when all those phobies started coming in for a little bit, and then eventually they floundered too. Guess who was in charge then as well?
Dixie Carter? Oh, Eric Bischoff. Sorry.
Eric Bischoff.
So listen, I can't badmouth Dixie. I got love for Dixie Carter. So all right, man. So any final words on Bischoff? Darius clearly hates him as an executive, but loved him as an on-air talent. But I mean, he's so. I understand, Shane, why you put him in your top 5. He is woven into the fabric of WCW.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, I kind of put the cart before the horse a little bit by having Shane give his number 5, but that's fine. We know it's Eric Bischoff. I want to circle back to the honorable mention because the honorable mention, Shane, is also the person who is number 6 on your list, which technically would be in that honorable mention position. Somebody who I think is quite worthy of being in the top 5. When you talk about WCW, this guy rode with WCW until the end. Accomplished. He was a 4-time five-time WCW champion, heavyweight champion. He was a 6-time WCW television champion. He won the U.S. title and he won the tag titles with his brother Stevie Ray 10 times in the tag team known as Harlem Heat. How this guy didn't make the top 5, I don't know. But our honorable mention tonight is Hall of Famer. I think he's a WWE Hall of Famer. He was accomplished in the WWE as well. He won multiple championships there. He was king of the ring there. I mean, he's accomplished everywhere he went. And our honorable mention tonight is Booker T. And I don't feel right saying that. I feel like Book should be in the top 5, Shane. Why was he outside of your top 5? I'll start with you, Shane, and then I'll jump to Darius because you've done it again, Darius Ron, but I'll wait. I'll let Shane go first, and then we'll circle to you, sir.
Look, as great as Booker is, and Harlem Heat, great tag team. I was a big Harlem Heat fan. Booker T. HTR got love for Booker T. Booker T.
Yeah. We had Booker T as a guest on the show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we went through every one of his recruits to get him.
we called everybody. I didn't call him. I guess Darius probably did. He called everybody from that wrestling school. I forget what is it called?
Oh my God, I forgot.
Is it reality of wrestling? Is it reality of wrestling? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, but Darius is showing that he's not like Eric Bischoff. He will go out and get people.
That's right.
Oh, he will. He's relentless.
Harley race. Anyway,
man. Snooker. We had all of them on there, man. We had all the old dudes.
When you think about WCW, and you think about the faces, Booker wasn't a big face in WCW, but in terms of instrumental, I don't think he was one of those instrumental faces that that was leading the charge where people were like, oh my God, I got to sit down on Monday night because Booker T, as great as he was and is, I don't think that was the case.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I would argue that he probably more towards the end of WCW's run.
That's it.
He probably was the face. I mean, but at that point they didn't have a lot of faces left. Not to say that's why he was placed in that position, but towards the end of the run, he was more I think the face of the company. But you're right, Shane. I think when you think about the Flairs, the Stings, the Hulk Hogans, he maybe doesn't have as much cachet as those names. Maybe is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
All right, Darius. You look like you had a point to make before I lambaste you for changing your list at the 11th hour once again. But go ahead.
I did, and it by decision came because of Shane's point that he really came on, although he's been there forever and he worked his way and he was the working champ at that mid-tier level for all that time. I mean, man. Chris Benoit versus him in the best of 7 series.
Yeah, that's great.
Ridiculous.
Excellent.
His feuds with Harlem Heat versus the NWOs, Nash, Hall and Nash. They were a big, they were big for him. But he didn't get off until that bum Hulk Hogan left the building, right? So that's when he really took off. Wasn't he the last WCW World Champion? Am I lying there?
He was. I mean, I think he came into. Didn't he come
in the U.S. title?
Didn't he come into WWE with the belt?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe he beat Scott Steiner on the final Nitro, if memory serves.
Yeah, because I know they were doing I remember when WWE first made the acquisition and they were trying to kind of make WCW like its own brand. Shout out to Don Sucker. They were trying to make WCW their own brand, and they had Booker T versus Buff Bagwell. They
botched all of
running that for 2 or 3 weeks, and it's nobody wants to see this. Nobody wants to see Booker T versus Buff Bagwell. But before we I want to get to some of these comments here. Booker T is an honorable mention. James is appalled. She's shaking his head. Really, he's putting his hand on his forehead. But you get the point. He's not happy. He was a big Harlem Heat fan. Harlem Heat, man, I don't think they get the credit that they deserve when you talk about some of the great. And I'm sure we're going to have a tag team. We got to have a tag team show at some point down the road. But Harlem Heat is one of the greatest tag teams ever. And I don't know that they get the recognition that they truly deserve. Oh, Shane, look, we put your comment up here. You were rocking with Booker T for when he was on GWF in the early 90s.
Bro.
This guy going way back. But
wrestling.
Yeah, so Booker T not making the top 5. I don't know, man. I just feel like he's one of the more accomplished champions in WCW, and I get it. Like you said, his run was kind of on that tail end of WCW. Everybody had kind of left or were on their way out, and so, but still, man, nonetheless, Booker T worked his way through the ranks, accomplished as a tag team wrestler, and then went on to have an amazing singles career. He could have quite possibly been in the top 5 if Darius would not have changed his top 5. Booker T was on Darius's list, and
I love Booker T.
At the 11th hour, he took Booker T off his list.
You know why?
Do we want to say for who?
We want to say why. We want to say why.
Okay, you want to say why? Oh, you don't want to say for who? Okay, but tell us why. Tell us why.
That'll come in my snubs.
Okay,
but
all right.
It's because I'm disappointed with our interview that we had with him so many years ago. See, I think
the grudge.
He held back. He held back in that interview. He was very non-committal.
He was monotone.
He was very monotone. Very short answered.
Clearly,
I didn't appreciate that.
Clearly,
he didn't. And we spoke to everybody in this camp. We brought them on and promoted this show for months and months and months.
And that was the catch. Because we promoted his show, it had so many people on. He felt obligated to come on with us. Okay, I remember now.
And listen, he did not perform that night. So for that, come on now, fake it for me. Fake it for me. Listen, Sid Vicious, right? Who I'll tie this back. Who Sid Vicious brought Booker T and Stevie Ray into WCW for those who didn't know. But Sid Vicious, he told me prior to coming on, I only got 15 good minutes in me. I'm sick as a dog. I'm not feeling good. He ended up going 45 minutes. Sid Vicious put in the work. The guy who takes softball breaks in the middle of world title runs gave us the best he could. Booker T, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, gave me nothing. So for that, I'm sorry, Booker. I'm holding a little bit of grudge until we can redeem this. We will. Listen.
Oh, you ain't gonna get him now.
You better add him. You better add him when this thing is out.
You're not gonna get him now. You know he owed backstage. Oh, backstage is canceled. Oh, you might get him. He ain't got nothing to do on Tuesday nights no more. He available.
He can't. They can't do third parties.
Oh no!
Oh yeah! No StreamYard for WWE guys. No Facebook Live for Booker T. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, man. WWE putting the hammer down. You can't even do any third party stuff. But yeah, man, Booker T. Just to give you guys some perspective on where he was ranked by others not named Darius. He was number 5 on my personal list. And the tribe also voted him at number 5. So when we polled everyone, Booker T actually came in at number 5 on that list. So, you know, he was right there on the cusp, on the border. Could have very well been in the top 5. And had he been, it would have been much deserved. James is mad at you, Darius, but what else is new? You and him have this like ongoing. He hates where you rank guys all the time. So
ditto.
He's not happy. He's not happy with you. You're not happy with him, and you know it wouldn't be a normal show if you guys were happy with each other. So Shane gave his number 5, Darius, and he gave us Eric Bischoff. Let's go ahead and give him the composite number 5, who came in at number 5 on the list. And of course, this might be a little controversial. Darius is already shaking his head because Darius hates this guy. We established this in a show we did a couple of months ago when we did our Mount Rushmore professional wrestlers, and we had the whole HTR crew on back in June.
Wait, what? This guy's 5?
He's 5.
Wow. Yeah. That's a lot of personal animosity going on.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I have an explanation because he didn't make my top 5, but there's a reason for that. But coming in
at the WWE Hall of Fame, that's why.
Because what?
No repeats. This ain't the WWE Hall of Fame.
Okay, but he comes in at number 5 because whether you like it or not, his WCW run was impactful. So coming in at number 5 in our composite ranking is Hulk Hogan. A 6-time, as you see there, 6-time WCW champion.
Travesty.
Shane, 5, Shay. The floor is yours. You seem appalled by this.
Listen, he's a racist, sure. His family
provides alcohol to minors.
His family's not all there, sure. He doesn't know best, sure. But 5? When it comes to WCW, this guy is 5? I mean, okay.
This isn't a WWE list. He would be.
It doesn't matter. He got to WCW in 94.
Correct.
He got to WCW 94. In his debut match, he beat Flair at Bash at the Beach.
Right.
And we all know Bash at the Beach would be iconic, a couple of years later. Yes. But he's only won the WCW Heavyweight Championship. That's the only title he's ever won in the company. He won it 6 times. Granted, that's because of the pull he has.
Sure,
but it was expected because he's one of the biggest names. He's one of the biggest faces. And then in 96 at Bash at the Beach, that heel turn, that third man with NWO took the wrestling world by storm. This guy started, spray painting his beard, coming out with black and white and, with the belt and the guitar and everything. Like, did he do a freaking presidential run? Like he was getting steam for being going for president. Like, this guy was putting ass in seats in WCW. He was instrumental in the whole Monday Night Wars to get them on top for 83 weeks. How is he number 5?
He's number 5. Okay, I'll explain why he's number 5, and you might have a better understanding. Hint, hint. When we get to number 4, why he didn't make the list for me at number 5 individually. Shane, he got the most votes from the tribe. He was number 1. Well, he was tied. He was tied for number 1 with someone we'll talk about later who's also in the composite top 5. So the tribe agrees with you. The people that we polled, including yourself, they agree with you. Hogan should be much higher than 5. Tyler in the chat room says Hogan should be at least number 3 on the list. Shane, and you saying you also
he was my 3.
You had him at number 3. He said he should be at least number 3. James says Hogan sucks. Which for the first time in GOAT debate history, Darius and James agree on something. So
maybe he has some common sense after all.
It takes Hulk Hogan, a guy who's not about unification, to unify Darius and James. So they both agree that Hulk Hogan sucks, but I tend to, although I didn't rank him individually in my top 5, I tend to agree with Shane that his run in WCW was impactful and very instrumental in WCW becoming, albeit for a brief time, the number 1 wrestling company maybe in the world.
All right. Let me concede some facts. He's got 8 of the top 10 highest pay-per-view numbers for WCW, right? So
of course he does.
He was WCW from the moment he came over. But he's also the reason, some other people did not get, recognized and did not get pushed correctly. And they attempted to do so late with Russo, but that was a hot mess, so it wasn't done correctly. So he's a part of the greatest things to ever happen to that company, and he's also part of the worst things that ended up ruining the company and running it to the ground, right?
The gift of the curse. Yeah.
That's right. So, so that averages as a 50 to me. 100 and a 0, that's 50, right? That's not top 10 material.
That's an F. That's 50%.
That's right. You don't make top 5 for 50%, so therefore you're in the bottom. But
I don't know, man. I don't know. That 50% that was good was really good. If you grade on the curve, if we grade on the curve, he might be top 5.
Listen, my hate aside, Stokes, he's already he is in this list somewhere else. So for that, I'm not double ranking people. This isn't the Ric Flair goes in by himself and he also goes in as a 4 horseman. If you accomplish something, you know, your accomplishments aren't divided, is what I'm saying. You know, they're all as one.
But it was a different show, and you could be a 3-time Pulitzer Prize winner. You could be a 5-time Oscar winner.
True. And Hogan had great.
You don't get Best Picture twice for the same movie, though.
True,
Okay.
but what was the other show? What was the other show about? Wrestling Mount Rushmore.
But you can win Best Actor for multiple movies or more than one.
Okay. Y'all right. Okay, well, let me put it this way then. His accomplishments for what I voted him in for was stronger than the 2 years he was without it. Because from 94 to 96, he did good, but I don't think it eclipsed the other people on this list.
That's what it was starting to get stale, and that's what prompted.
They were about to throw him out the building.
The big change. But when that change happened,
right. So he'll get his flowers then, but he ain't getting it for this crap.
Oh my God!
Those 2 years,
put a rocket ship on him. When
listen, they put him in, and they put him in, and they immediately destroyed Ric Flair. They're the main star from WCW. He beat him 2 times in a row. They had a career-ending, match within the first year. They destroyed it. It was horrible creative. It just, pushed him to the moon and destroyed the rest of the roster. His time as just plain old Hulk Hogan in WCW was not all roses. It was bad creative. So for that, I'm not pushing him in as a top 5 on my list. From 96 on, that's a different story. They blew up and then they changed the game. But from 94 to 96...
They just blew up. All they did was blow up and change the game.
Right.
That's
right.
it.
Which I'm giving him credit for, but I'm not giving him credit.
That's like saying that when Austin was the ringmaster, it was whack. But then Attitude Era Austin that changed the game. I'm not going to give him credit for when he was the ringmaster, but Attitude Era Austin, from 96 on, same as Hogan's, the whole NWO thing, from 96 on, I'm gonna give him credit.
No, it'd be like saying Arn Anderson is a Hall of Famer as a 4 horseman, but with him as an individual single, I don't put him in the Hall of Fame.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Hulk Hogan is a Hall of Famer as singles Hulk Hogan.
We're talking about WCW.
Hulk Hogan, Mega Powers Hulk Hogan. Is there any other Hulk Hogan? Okay, so if his run was from 94 to 96, Hall of Famer is in any version of him that ever existed in wrestling.
So if they ushered him out before Bash of the Beach 96, and WCW had this Hall of Fame like the WWE, you would have inducted him into the WCW Hall of Fame?
The pay-per-view numbers were fire. The creative might have been bad. The pay-per-view numbers were they were good the first year.
Okay.
So he had a year after that. When he first came, it was the nostalgia, the excitement of him jumping ship from WWF at the time.
Right.
And then you're saying in year 2, it kind of went downhill. Yeah.
Yes. Because they were ready to get rid of him. They didn't know what to do with him. They weren't getting rid of him is a bit of an exaggeration, right?
Hogan. They probably weren't going to get rid of him.
but it wasn't going his way, and they were scrambling for something to do.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, James is, man, he's in the chat room co-signing. Y'all brothers now, man. I thought I would never see the day. But Tyler says Hulk Hogan did push people in WCW. He pushed them down. which I mean, which is true. Shout out to Robert in the chat room. He says, you got to put personal hate aside. He's talking to you, dearest. You got to put personal hate aside. Hogan is at least number 2 behind Ric Flair. Debatable.
That part, yeah.
But I think, although he didn't make my list, but we're about to find out why soon. But I get why people would say he deserves. Listen, man, guy. I had to stop because Tyler says, "Oh hell no! Don't you be listen." And his English is bad. Don't you be disrespecting Arn Anderson like that, Darius. Arn Anderson is you can't come at Arn Anderson like that, man.
Listen, I love the Four Horsemen, man. Again, but without them,
Okay.
Dangerous Alliance. Arn Anderson was okay. Anything outside of
the Brain Busters, that wasn't WCW though, but I did like the Brain Busters. Right. The Revival, or sorry, Fear the Revolt or Revolution or whatever they are these days, FTR. They remind me
a ripoff
of the Brain Busters, like so much. But I digress. Shane, number 4 on your list. I mean, we spent like 20 minutes talking about Hulk Hogan, but he's not.
This podcast is never going to end.
He's not important. He's not that great. He's just okay. But we just talked about him for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Who's your number 4, Shane?
My number 4 is the guy that had one of the most iconic entrances. Testing Taker in length of entrance. But okay. I had to go with none other than the former, since football's back, the former NFL player, Bill. We'll drop his first name in a couple months. Goldberg.
Gotcha. Okay, so Goldberg.
Yep.
Coming in at number 4. Interesting. Goldberg at number 4. You want to elaborate on that at all? Give us some info?
I know, based on how Darius was going with Hogan and Hogan, 2 years and all that. I know Goldberg didn't have like that longevity in terms of in-ring action, as we see wrestlers like Randy Orton's now in like year 20, whatever, but Goldberg came in, everybody knew about this streak, 173-0 was the number. Although it was more like 50. But Goldberg came in. They built Goldberg up like I wish they would do so often with the big monsters. He was squashing people quickly. He was showing his power. He showed that he was agile. He was jumping, and flying through the air at times and all that. Instead, today we get like the Brodus Clay, the Funkasaurus and stuff like that. Goldberg was an ideal way to build up your monster. This guy came in and was wrecking crap. And, he was one of those guys that, again, just like I did with Hogan, I'm not Hogan. I said it with Hogan. Goldberg was putting people in front of the TV. Then, he was so good. Then you had Gilbert. Like, come on. Yeah. I can't think of WCW and not think about Goldberg.
Okay. All right. I don't think we're gonna fight you there. We're gonna touch on Goldberg, I think, some more in a little bit, but we want to give our number 4. And here's why Hulk Hogan did not make my top 5. because I included him in the group that comes in at number 4. And coming in number 4 for our greatest WCW superstar. Now, these are superstars because this is actually not just one person, but an entire faction coming in at number 4. But they were so impactful that I think they're worthy of being in the top 5. So coming in at number 4 is the NWO, the New World Order. And we see some of their accomplishments there. Members of their group collectively, 10 world championships, 11 tag championships, 10 U.S. championships, 3 television championships, and a cruiserweight championship as well. Wasn't like somebody like there wasn't a cruiserweight that no, it was X-Pac. Never mind. It was 6. I'm sorry. It was 6 that was a cruiserweight champion. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I said X-Pac, but he was 6 in the NWO. So this is why, Shane, I did not put Hulk Hogan in as an individual, because I felt, and I guess as Darius did, that his contributions to WCW were more impactful as a member of the NWO. So that's why collectively NWO obviously changed the whole game for WCW, really put them in a position where they could take over as the number 1 wrestling company in the world at the time, beat WWE in the ratings 83 straight weeks. And so because of that, the NWO comes in at number 4 on our list. Darius, you got anything you want to add?
No. I've said my piece on Hollywood, but amazing Hollywood Hulk Hogan. It is deserving of a top 5 spot is the NWO. They changed the game. Again, great move by Eric Bischoff, but unfortunately no creative, so it went downhill. It's interesting that, I kind of wish they would have pulled the trigger on the NWO having Nitro and WCW having the Thunder and running the 2 promotions as separate. They had the NWO sold out, and that pay-per-view went horrible because it was all bad guys going over, and it was just weird. It was a concept we never saw before, and they couldn't execute it correctly, and they should have gave it more time and tried to figure it out, I think, and maybe that could have saved the company. That was the reason why he's saying now that's the reason why he added so many members into the NWO, is because they had to, you try and use that to hold a entire show by themselves. So it was the rise and the fall, right? But while they were hot, they were really, really hot. They just couldn't find a way to sustain it. And I think that's mostly because another guy on this list that we'll talk about later.
Yeah, I think too, a big thing with that was it was a lot of, when you had some of the biggest names like ever in the history of wrestling, like in one faction. I mean, obviously Hogan, Hall, and Nash were the founding members, and those 3 guys were, they were pretty big names. Then you add Macho Man, you add Kurt Hennig, you add, I think at one time you had Rude in there, you had, the Giant, aka the Big Show, in there. I mean, you had a lot of guys in there, and I think at some point just ego. You had Bret Hart in there at one time, and so you just had some big names, and then I just think ego kind of also probably was something that led to their downfall as well.
Let me pose this question to you. So the story goes that Bischoff was very nervous to pitch Hogan as the 3rd man. And he wasn't sure he would take it and go with it. And eventually, for whatever reason, Hogan, is like, yeah, I'm all in. Who's this 3rd man? Let me get in on it. The backup was Sting.
Yeah, it was originally supposed to be right. Was it going to be Sting? That was what I heard the same thing.
Right, but and Bischoff confirmed that. But what was shot down was Bret Hart. Now, Hogan was the right man. There's no question that. But the fact that they did Bret Hart, they've been in talks back and forth. Bret was using him for, trying to get better paychecks and a bunch of drama. But Bischoff was very dismissive on Bret Hart. Because okay, let me ask you. Let me jump around a little bit, because there was a lot of lawsuits about using the Hall and Nash and portraying WWE invading WCW. What was your interpretation of the NWO? The reason why the NWO was there? Do you remember what you thought at the time?
Well, I mean, by then at least I was kind of, I guess, a smart mark to the business. So I knew.
Right, but what was the storyline? What was the storyline?
The storyline was supposed to be that Hall and Nash were outsiders. That's why their names that's why they had the tag team name, the Outsiders. My thought was that the storyline was supposed to be these guys coming from, they made references to it. They would say that company up north and things like that. So my thought always was that the storyline was these guys went rogue from WWE and were invading WCW. That's what I always understood the storyline to be.
Shane, do you agree with that? Is that your interpretation of what the storyline was supposed to be?
Yeah, I can see that. I probably
what else?
That. It was also probably kind of like what we see now, where these guys leave WWE and they go to the next company and they're bashing WWE or the lifestyle or the mindset of those in charge of WWE. So they wanted to be, different in terms of, okay, we were shackled, or at least we were given that perception of being shackled. So now we're gonna cause anarchy and mayhem and all of this other stuff and be the outsiders and create this brand new way of doing things and thinking, and the new world order. This is how things are gonna be now, where you're gonna cheer for the bad guy, that because everything was always the good guy. Hogan was good guy for 15 years before he turned, so this is gonna be the new way of thinking thing.
Only 15? I thought it was longer than that.
I could be wrong, but
yeah,
80s to 95. That's about right.
Yeah, I guess that's about right. Yeah.
So that was going to be the thing. We're going to have this new way of thinking about things, and look at it. Like Steve Austin then became the anti-hero,
right,
and all of this. So
both of those are very logical reasons why these outsiders would be tearing up WCW.
Mm-hmm.
But if you listen to 83 Weeks, Eric Bischoff's podcast, he spins it differently. He says that they were there because they were previously in WCW and they were mad because they weren't used correctly. Did that play out in any way, shape, or form? Why would Hulk Hogan join forces if they were mad because they weren't used? He was never used incorrectly in WCW.
Right. The only thing I can see, if you go back and look at some of those original, I guess, invasions when Hall initially debuted. I think Hall debuted first.
Came through the crowd.
And so he comes on, he gets on the mic and he says, you know who I am and you know why I'm here, or something to that effect. And then Nash comes a couple of weeks later,
mm-hmm.
and he's like very angry with Bischoff for some unknown reason. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's what Bischoff is referring to. Because I think Nash does say some things that kind of leads you to believe that maybe he's disgruntled with his previous WCW run. Because he was like, wasn't he like Vinny Vegas or so? Or was he Vinny Vegas?
Yeah.
He was Vinny Vegas in WCW. Okay, so maybe that. I don't remember Scott Hall in WCW.
He was the Diamond Stud. He rolled with DDP.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, but if the idea was to have this mystery third man all along, that turns out to be a guy who's just been in WCW for 2 years and was treated great, it doesn't really make sense with these disgruntled employees.
Yeah, it would have made much more sense to kind of to portray it the way we kind of been talking about what we thought it was, and then you kind of just say Hogan was a plant. Hogan was there, for 2 years, and this was the plan. This was the plan all along to kind of have these WWE guys invade, WCW. That would have been that's how I always thought it was, but I guess now you're saying we were all wrong.
We had no clue. We didn't know what we were watching.
Yeah, no idea. Yeah. Tyler says Nash was also Oz in WCW.
That was such a horrible gimmick.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not familiar with that. James says, I'm calling foul. You didn't say factions or groups because I would have put the NWO in my top 5. Well, we didn't give any rules, James. So the NWO, we just said give us a top 5.
They put a commentator in there.
Yeah, so NWO comes in at number 4. Before we go to Shane's number 3, we might as well reveal our number 3 because our number 3 was Shane's number 4, and that is Bill Goldberg. So Bill Goldberg comes in at number 3 on our composite list of the greatest WCW stars of all time. What sticks out to me about Goldberg, that graphic there is one thing that sticks out. He only won the WCW championship one time. And he was I think his WCW run was 6 years.
He debuted in 97. Yep.
Yeah, so he was there. He was there a lot. I mean, heck, Hogan was there 6 years and had 6 title reigns. So I mean, he's had more WWE title reigns than he actually had WCW title reigns when you think about it, and that's kind of crazy. But so that sticks out to me, and then what also sticks out to me is that he is one of the truly WCW bred superstars to kind of really blow up. Like, he's the one that, he wasn't a previous WWE star that came over and just kind of built upon that already established stardom. He was truly, a homegrown WCW product. And he won the WCW championship one time, but that lead up, that slow burn to him getting to the title was one of the best builds in the history of pro wrestling. And it was so memorable and so impactful that's why I think Goldberg's worthy of being in the top 5.
Yeah, the sold out Georgia Dome where he ran through Scott Hall earlier in the night to get to Hulk Hogan. That place was, the only thing that really tops that for me is Hogan Rock. I mean, it was that if you go back and listen to him winning that title, it was electric. And I know everybody in this, in on this call, we all went to the Georgia Dome for WrestleMania, saw how big that was, how big that arena was. That thing was huge, and that was a Nitro.
Yeah.
So, not a pay-per-view.
That's his home state. That's his hometown.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it was
So impactful.
it was definitely when I think of biggest WCW matches like in memory, that probably sticks out as number one for me. What should be up there that was a thorough disappointment, I thought, was Sting Hogan. And we might get into that a little bit later, but I thought that could have had the same level of impact.
It should have.
It should have, because the build up for that was WCW did a great job with a few storylines where they did these slow burns. They did it great with Goldberg, Hogan leading up to Hogan, and they did it great with Sting, wanting to get to Hogan and the NW. I mean, all of that was very well done. I know we kind of were reaming on their creative a little bit, but all of that stuff those were some of the bright spots. But Goldberg definitely, one of the great stars in WCW. Title reigns aside, he would go on, of course, to WWE, and his first stint in WWE wasn't that great. He kind of, it just didn't work out. He was butting heads with people, and then, he comes back some years later, much older, and he's done some good things there since. So Goldberg comes in at number 3 on our composite. Shane, who was number 3 on your personal list here? We'll try to breeze through here as we're already we spent so much time talking about Hulk Hogan, but it's all good. It's been a good show. Who's number 3 on your list?
Funny you mentioned that, because my number 3 was Hulk Hogan.
Hogan. Oh, look, there's walking. You made him get out of his fancy gamer chair, man. He's walking away. He's angry.
I mean, we've already covered it, but
yeah, right.
It's Hogan. I'm sorry. I clearly now know that Darius cannot be one of those baseball Hall of Fame voters.
He can't,
because he's just gonna have.
He's not getting in. If he juiced, he's not in.
Even if they've never been caught juicing, he's still not going to put him in because he wronged you. He wronged you by cutting in front of you in a hot dog line or something.
Yeah, look at that. All right, well, okay. So Hogan was number 3 on your list. So we were flip flop there. You had Goldberg. We had Goldberg, Hogan, Goldberg. Gotcha. Okay, so number 2. Shane, number 2 on your list.
My number 2 is actually probably lots of people's number 1 when it comes to WCW, but my number 2 is the Nature Boy, Ric Flair.
The Nature Boy, Ric Flair, coming in at number 2.
Darius looks frozen. List. Like
he looks like he's angry. He's Are you mad about that? I mean, I respect it. Ric Flair coming in at number 2. I know you live in Ric Flair country, or you did.
Do I need to go get the?
Now he lives close to Hogan country.
Now he's closer to Hogan. But okay, so Ric Flair comes in at number 2 on your list. Ric Flair actually was tied with Hulk Hogan for the most votes by the tribe. He came in at tied at number 1. I agree with you, dear Shane. Ric Flair was also number 2 on my personal list, but on the actual top 5 composite, coming in at number 2 is the man they call Sting. Sting comes in at number 2 on our composite list. 9-time WCW champion. What can we say about Sting? He's a WWE Hall of Famer too, right? Technically.
Yeah, I think so.
Which is actually hilarious because I mean, he barely had a cup of coffee in
Then broke his neck
in WWE, and Seth Rollins almost killed the poor man. But yeah, man, Sting, you know, listen, for a guy who grew up, you know, kind of in the Midwest, or not kind of in the Midwest, for a guy who grew up in the Midwest and was more of a WWE guy, the one guy that I did know from WCW was Sting. And so I, you know, the face paint, I had an action figure when I was a kid. Sting was the man. And then Sting is one of these guys who was very good at recreating himself. You know, everybody says that, especially when you've had the longevity that Sting has had in his career. And I know Chris Jericho talks about this a lot, just having the ability to reinvent yourself. And so Sting was able to do that multiple times with, you know, and still with the face paint stuff. You know, we got Crow Sting. I think even during this TNA run, we got like Joker. We got like the Joker Sting. So he was able to do some things to keep his character, you know, going. He was getting a little stale, and then the NWO thing kind of came along, and he kind of created the, you know, the Crow character. And again, that build to, is Sting in the NWO or isn't he in the NWO? Then we find out he isn't. And then the lead up to him finally meeting Hogan at Starrcade, only for that. I think Bret Hart kind of ruined that a little bit too. I think Bret Hart was the special guest referee or like special enforcer or something in that match. And that match should have been way bigger and better than it was. That was
Hogan's fault. Because there was a mix-up with the fast count. Hogan told Nick Patrick to do one thing. Eric Bischoff told him to do another, and he listened to Hogan.
So how's that Hogan's fault? How's that Hogan's fault?
Because Hogan's overriding creative. Creative had Nick Patrick do one thing, and Hogan said, "No, do this."
Wasn't Eric Bischoff?
What was supposed to happen?
I think he was supposed to do a fast count.
Yes,
and did not do a fast count.
He did a regular
Hogan told him not to. Right, and it looked all botched and jacked, and it was confusing because of that. So he before they walked out the curtain, or you know, seconds before, whatever it was, Hogan changed the narrative and what they were supposed to do. So he screwed that up.
Yeah.
But it was a dumb storyline. They were trying to rip off the Vince McMahon screw job anyway, so that it was lame. But Hogan made it worse by the confusion.
Yeah. Tyler's defending Bret Hart. He said the booking screwed up Hogan versus Sting, not Bret Hart.
Yeah, it was dumb. It was really dumb.
Tyler also can't believe, Shane, that we had Ric Flair at number 2.
I have my reasons.
Man, you got to excuse us. I don't know what part of the country Tyler is from, but you know, I mean, I wasn't a huge, you know, I watched WCW, but not like I watched WWF at the time, and so Flair didn't have, like, I still don't know, and this is probably going to get me in trouble. I don't have that reverence for Ric Flair that a lot of wrestling fans have. I just don't. I don't.
We're on the same page, brother.
And I'm sure that's going to get me in some trouble. I know Tyler.
Oh my God.
There is clearly
a promo from WCW.
Tyler's not gonna, like, I actually probably listen. I mean, I had Sting at number 1 on my list. So, Tyler's from the Midwest too, and so I guess I stand corrected there. But
he was over at Courtney's house watching the.
Apparently, because Courtney was watching all this WCW. I also didn't grow up with cable, people. I was poor, okay? So I didn't have TBS and all the Superstation and all of that stuff. So I didn't watch a lot of WCW. I went to my grandmother's house. She had cable. I was able to catch WCW on those occasions, but for the most part, it was WWF Superstars on Saturday morning, and that's kind of how I was getting fed my professional wrestling at the time. But
we'll go back and watch Steamboat versus Flair.
I know those are great
matches. I've Steamboat versus Race.
Oh, you know what? You're talking about Ricky Steamboat an awful lot, but he wasn't in your top 5, Darius Brown.
I love Ricky Steamboat, but his impact was very short.
Yeah, he was. When I looked that up because we were talking about that earlier. I was like, he wasn't in WCW a long time.
He had that run with Flair. Then they pushed him off, I think, to Luger, and then after that, he was gone from the top scene. He ended up being a tag team partner with Dustin Rhodes, Shane Douglas, Dustin Rhodes, all that. So he was pushed aside. He was still great. He had an amazing match with Steve Austin that I can remember like it was yesterday.
TV championship match, right? Yeah.
He was great, but he just wasn't put in a great position. So.
Yeah, okay. All right, so yeah, but I mean, you brought up Steamboat, so I thought I love Steamboat. Bring him up, but so Sting comes in at number 2 on our list, although I'm going to assume, Shane, that Sting was number 1 on your list.
Dang right. Listen, Mine too. I have no problem with people loving Flair. You know, Mr. Wheelin' Dealin', Jet Flying, Kiss Stealing. I'm probably saying it out of order. Listen, he could cut a promo. The guy can wrestle. As much as I was the Caribbean Playboy, I didn't love Flair like that. I didn't. But
he should be your idol.
No.
Come on.
That's like saying that Val Venus should also be my idol.
Yes.
Rick Rude should be your idol.
Like, I'll side more with a Rick Rude. Let's not. Val Venus got his penis chopped off. Remember that? Cayenne time. But, you know, the reason why I didn't put Flair up there as other people might is because I was looking at Flair in WCW when it was WCW, not when it was NWA coming into WCW. Like, you know, to me, I separated that. And when I did that, I just felt that Sting was just a bigger face of WCW. And if you look, because you guys normally pull up these other rankings from other publications or whatever not, you'll see, I think like WWE even has Sting as as the number 1 WCW champion on their rankings as well. Really? I mean, right. So
yeah, that's all that.
So to me, you know, when you see Sting's accolades, he has all of those world championships. He was 4-time PWI most popular wrestler, voted by fans. You know, he's been the wrestler of the year. You know, he had that locker room presence. To me, he was like the Undertaker of WCW, where he was that respected veteran presence. He's also the guy that WWE would try to get every year, and fans were like, when is Sting gonna come? When is Sting gonna come? When is Sting gonna come? And for years it never happened. And then finally when he came, it was like, he was old at this point, but it's like, holy crap, Sting finally came to WWE. Yeah. You know, like
all of that stuff. A cool debut. That Survivor Series debut was really cool. It was still good. Like you said, he's old as crap though.
Right.
Yeah.
But I just think of, when you think of WCW, I think you're going to see the first thing you might think of is this guy with the face paint. You know, he had the coolest thing, you know, rest in peace Owen Hart. But when Sting was coming down from the rafters and everything and the baseball bat and all that, it's like, holy crap, this one guy is taking on NWO. You know, to me, he was that company hero, the same way that John Cena was the last WWE company hero, and before him it might have been Hogan or whatever. But Sting was that constant company hero for WCW. And for me, when I think of the top wrestler face of WCW, to me it's Sting.
Yeah.
Go ahead. He carried that after the NWO like kind of started to fizzle, that year drama between, you know, him thinking that WCW turned on him until he finally faced Hogan, that carried the company for that chunk of time. So you know, you're definitely not wrong there. They called him the franchise for a reason, right? He was the franchise of WCW. Because he never jumped ship, although, you know, it was mostly due because of the Attitude Era was a little more risque, and you know, that's the main reason. He just became a born again Christian, right? Otherwise, he might have made that jump, but yeah, he didn't, and you know, he was the franchise.
So here's interesting, since we like to bring up lists. Really quick, WWE, as you alluded to, Shane, 50 greatest WCW superstars of all time. Sting is number 1. Ranker, which I don't know that I don't know how credible this list is, because they have Macho Man at number 2, but
hey, he did numbers.
Yeah, I was gonna say he made some top 10s, but Ranker has Sting 1, Savage 2, Flair 3. Bleacher Report also has Sting number 1. They go Sting, Flair, Luger, Steiner Brothers, Road Warriors. That's their top 5. Which we didn't even get into the Steiners and the Road Warriors. Because I talked about the Road Warriors in preparation for the show, how they could be considered a snub. But WWE's list, their top 5, real quick, is Sting, Flair, Hogan, Goldberg, Nash. I don't know how the heck Kevin Nash makes the top 5. That's just got to be
because of his booking.
Because he was a WWE guy too. But Ranker has Sting, Savage, Flair, Goldberg, Booker T. And then they got Steamboat at number 6. That's not bad. But yeah, Tyler makes a great point. We talked about Goldberg being homegrown. Sting number 1 on the list of greatest homegrown WCW wrestlers. And I can respect that. Obviously, Ric Flair is going to come in here at number 1 on our list here as
so anti-dramatic.
Yeah, I mean, it's very anticlimactic. You know, I mean, we already talked about the debate between Sting, so clearly Ric Flair is number 1 on our list here. And you know, what can we say about Flair that hasn't already been said? Look, I said I don't revere the guy as much as some. I mean, but for God's sakes, the Migos made a song about him and put him in their rap video. I do rock a Ric Flair. I do got a Ric Flair like novelty tee that I bought at Meijer one time. I wear that quite frequently. So I got a lot of respect for Ric Flair, but again, you know, he's not one of, you know, he's not like my all-time favorite wrestler, but definitely respect what he brought to the game and what he, you know, his contribution to professional wrestling. Real quick, before we sign off for this episode 18, give me a snub, somebody that was a great WCW star, maybe could have been in the top 5, but you know, just didn't have any room for him. I'll start with you, Shane, and then go to Darius.
Well, I saw some chatter about this one, so I'll just say it, even though I would have never put him on my list because I will forever be a racist. And for those listening, when I say racist, I don't mean Hogan racist. I mean REYCIST, as in
not RACIST, right?
As in anti-Rey Mysterio. So I'm pretty sure some people would put Rey Mysterio up there for the cruiserweight stuff. So I'll just say he would probably be a possible snub for those, not me. but for some.
I'm not. Hey, Shane, I'm with you, man. I used to not be a racist. R-E-Y racist. I used to not be a racist, but I think maybe I'm a little racist now.
They're gonna take that clip and just post it everywhere. It's gonna come back to haunt you.
I know they're gonna post. No, let me clarify. R-E-Y. As in Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, that's getting edited out. They're not going to use
it. Not as
He's just a racist.
Not as in racist. Not as in what we got going on in this country right now. Not that type of racism. But yeah, but yes, Rey Mysterio was definitely a huge contributor to WCW. Definitely the cruiserweight division. I remember the cruiserweight division just being just phenomenal in WCW. It was, they had Mysterio, Guerrero, they had Juventud Guerrero, who was very good, Chris Jericho. They were, and they were probably Billy Kidman. They had a lot of high quality cruiserweights and probably a bunch more that we're not even naming. But so Rey Mysterio's your snub, Darius. Who do you got?
I got a old school one. I got to go with Dusty Rhodes.
Okay.
For his early work, on top, early NWA, WCW era with the Four Horsemen, his battles there. Were legendary, and then his contribution backstage. All these pay-per-view ideas and creative starcades, and we see Cody Rhodes now trying to get some of his legacy back that his father put in. The Dusty finish, as Shane alluded to in the chat. It became a running joke, but some of those moments were really good where he had you thinking one way and something else happened. So, for a while his creative was pretty on point too. So, for that, he gets a snub from me.
Okay. Yeah. And I would probably say, there's a lot of people, I'm just looking at the tribe. There are a lot of people that got some votes, got consideration.
DDP.
DDP got a couple of votes. Arn Anderson. I talked about Billy Kidman. Chris Benoit even got a vote. But I remember, again, not a huge WCW guy. Two guys that I remembered three. I always remembered, obviously. Well, I knew who the Steiner brothers were because they went to Michigan. So of course I knew Go Blue. I knew about the Steiner brothers because they would wear the Michigan jackets. They would wear their Letterman jackets.
Those were hot. Those are hot.
Yeah, man. Those are fire jackets. By the way, come on, man.
Michigan, they had a run in WWE early on too.
Yeah. So I knew the Steiners because they went to Michigan. Obviously Sting, Flair. And then the other guy I knew the Road Warriors. And then the other guy that I knew was Lex Luger. And I know that, he won't get a lot of love from you, Darius. But Lex Luger, 5-time United States champ, 2-time WCW champion. I would probably make Lex Luger my snub.
On paper, but he was John Cena without the charisma. Well, John Cena could put on a good match. I'll take that back. Luger, name a Luger match.
I can't, but he was just a name. He was just a guy, and then he came to WWE. He was like the narcissist Lex Luger. I remember I think it was WrestleMania 9 where he had like 25 mirrors, like people holding up all these mirrors, and he was like flexing and and they tried to push him in WWE, but it just did not go. The whole Yokozuna thing, I remember that. It just didn't go well. But he had a great run in WCW. So Lex Luger would be would probably be my snub. So just to recap, the composite top 5, yes, the Lex Express. The composite top 5 tonight, greatest WCW superstars of all time. Number 5 was Hulk Hogan. Number 4 was the NWO. Number 3, Bill Goldberg, or just Goldberg. Number 2, Sting. And number 1, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, with our honorable mention being Booker T. So, I mean, it's a pretty solid list. I mean, we could, we talked about some snubs, some people that could have been on that list, but those 5, one faction, 4 people, were very impactful to the success of WCW, and some very impactful to the downfall of WCW as well. So I don't know if you guys ever saw that rise and fall of WCW that WWE did. It was and it kind of sucked because WWE did it. Of course, they painted WCW in the worst light possible, but it was a good, it was a good documentary. Kind of gave you some insight, but it definitely had a huge WWE slant. Just kind of like the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior before they got cool with Warrior. They kind of were bashing them in that. So, but yeah, rise and fall of WCW was actually not terrible, but probably something people want to check out if they want a little history on what happened in that company. But this has been episode 18 of the GOAT Debate podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in and rocking with us tonight. It's been a fun show. If you guys have not already, make sure you subscribe to our social media. You can find us on Facebook at the GOAT Debate podcast. We're also on Twitter and Instagram at GOAT_debate. Darius reminded me last week that you guys do not have to email us show suggestions because you can just simply DM us. This is 2020. You can DM us.
Slide in their DM.
You have an email address, but I'm not going to say it publicly because I don't want to be ridiculed again by Darius. Do you guys have any parting shots before we sign off tonight?
Less haterade, Darius. Less haterade, sir.
We got clearly Darius is not a racist. RACIST. Hulk Hogan is.
But, that's right.
But
I'm not a racist or a racist.
People are going to be so confused if they start listening at the end. They're going to be like, "What? What are they talking about?" But yeah. So and Shane, of course, you have a fledgling. Well, not fledgling. You have a thriving TikTok career. So for those that are interested in checking you out on TikTok, where can they find you, sir?
All right, it's all one word: DJ Pop Tart and the numbers 876. DJ Pop Tart 876. The 876 is the area code for Jamaica, or the country code for Jamaica, I should say.
Oh, I was wondering what the 876 was. Thanks for.
Are you going to explain the Pop Tart part?
Well, I do play music at school. I'm like the resident DJ at school. And years ago, when I was in Miami, I asked my class, I said, "What should my DJ name be?" And somebody was like, "Well, my lunch used to only be Pop-Tarts."
Okay.
So my kids were like, "Oh, DJ
that's
Pop-Tarts."
How you stay so slim. You just
right.
eat Pop-Tarts.
This is like freaking Pop-Tarts. I go to Sam's Club or Costco or BJ's, and I'll just get the big old 48 whatever count. Yeah, so that was me. DJ Pop-Tart 876. Go Miami Heat. We're coming out of the Eastern Conference.
Oh. All right, we might have to revisit that in a couple weeks. They're looking good though. They're looking good. They got a big game 7 tomorrow. They'll find out who their opponent is. Right.
Yep.
There you go. All right, Darius, what you got for us?
Yep. Make sure you follow right now on TikTok, DJ Pop Tart 876. And make sure you tune in. We got a special show next week in the works. Special time if you're listening to this. Well, it doesn't matter when you listen to this. As long as it's before next Friday. Instead of Thursday, folks, we will be on Friday because we will be joined, hopefully, by a special guest. One, Elijah Burke. formerly the Pope. I know our HTR family knows him very well, as he was a frequent guest on that podcast. He will be joining us as long as we don't get stood up. He doesn't have a record with that. Just saying, we're 1 for 2 with special.
Pope usually comes through, man. We had him on, we had him on a few times on HTR, and so it should be fun because we got a couple of topic that we might do that's kind of in his wheelhouse, and so.
Do you want to flip to the other topic?
I'm sorry.
Do you want to flip to the other topic?
I don't know. We'll discuss it offline. But but yeah, so be sure to tune in. We'll be live on Facebook next Friday instead of next Thursday. Of course, if you can't catch us live, of course, just download, listen to the podcast. Wherever you can find podcasts, you can find the GOAT Debate. So for myself, for Darius, for Shane, thanks for listening to this episode 18. We'll catch you guys next time. Peace.